Antebellum, the South, 1849. Your heart pounds out of your chest, with barely a flicker of light before you. You've managed the impossible. Escape from the cruelty of slavery. Little did you know at the time, you'd soon be bringing the very same freedom to thousands. The enslaved of the antebellum have, in retrospect, come to be witnessed for the horror they endured, yet in so many cases, the remarkable heroism and bravery they showed. Join us as we take a deep dive into the lives of two of history's most famous female slaves. Their lives and origins contrast as do their challenges. Yet both Sarah Baartman and Harriet Tubman faced agency and autonomy being taken from them. But no matter the hardships and brutality they faced, they were able to carve a place in history. Prepare to be astounded as we look at the terrifying hardships and incredible lives of these famous female slaves. Born in 1789 in the Eastern Cape of South Africa, Sarah Baartman was born into slavery. She would spend her childhood through to her teenage years working on colonial Dutch farms. The details available tell us when Sarah was not much older than 12, she would have encountered a man called Peter Caesars, a trader by profession. Caesars was a man of color who was freed from his enslaved descent. He is believed to have convinced Sarah to change her path and move to Cape Town. The circumstances around her move remain unclear as to how much say the young Sarah had in this. Living in Cape Town for 2 years would inestimably change Sarah. She would work across different households as a nursemaid and a washerwoman, but most importantly, would encounter men that would change the course of her life. She would work in the houses of Peter Caesars, his brother Hendrik Caesars, and at one point, a Dutch soldier, Hendrik van Jong. During this period, Sarah would have a relationship with Van Jong before military duty took him away, and it's believed Sarah had 2 children across this time. Both would not survive infancy, yet despite her time with Van Jong being short-lived, her relationship with Hendrik Caesars was heavily consequential. Hendrik Caesars is the man who introduced Sarah to the reality her body would be an object of voyeurism and marketability to the world around her. Caesars took Sarah to the city hospital in Cape Town where he would display her for money. A surgeon working at the hospital, Alexander Dunlop, had long run a business of providing animals for British showmen to exhibit. Dunlop suggested to Caesar that they do the same to Sarah and make money around Europe. Sarah was at first entirely repelled by the idea. It was written that Dunlop did not drop the idea. Hendrik Caesars was also reluctant and refused the idea of exhibiting Sarah in a show. Yet come 1810, when Sarah was no more than 21 years old, Caesars, Dunlop, and Baartman left for London to put her on stage for money. Living in a household in Duke Street, St. James in London, Dunlop, Caesars, and Baartman began their newly formulated trade of exhibiting Sarah. Their show began at number 10 Duchess Street, Cavendish Square in London. At the residency of Thomas Hope in his Egyptian room, Dunlop was convinced the display of Sarah could make money for 2 reasons. 1, because Londoners were entirely unfamiliar with African people, and 2, because of Sarah's immense posterior. Make no mistake, this was in the vein and stylings of a freak show, a long-established public exhibition tradition across Europe at this time. Sarah never allowed herself to be displayed in the nude. Her first display in 1810 had her wearing clothing, though it was worth stating the clothing was tight-fitting and likely purposely chosen. The display of Hottentot Venus was a regrettable mix of many of the time's illest traits. Pseudoscientific intrigue rooted in racism, damaging erotic projection, and a clear, colonial superior mindset. Despite the numbers and crowds her exhibition would bring, the void of understanding between the London culture and the African origins of Sarah could not be more clearly stated than her marketing. The marketing of Venus Hottentot as an attraction was declared an evolutionary gap between man and beast. Timing is a remarkable part of Sarah Baartman's story. She was brought to display just some 3 years following the abolition of the slave trade under the 1807 Slave Trade Act. Scandal unfolded within months of her arrival and debut as an exhibition. Abolitionists and African Association representatives protested to the point of taking it to court. At the Court of King's Bench in November of 1810, Sarah was questioned for 3 hours. Sarah stated she didn't wish to return to her family, that she'd come to London on her own accord and had not been the victim of sexual violence. She further stated that she had been guaranteed half of any money made from the exhibition. Yet, these statements had come to be seen as entirely suspect in retrospect. Many eyewitness statements and accounts of her exhibition contradicted these claims explicitly. Furthermore, many historians doubt that Sarah made these statements of her own volition. A written contract was produced as a result, but this as well has come to be seen as legally dubious. In a remarkable twist of fate, the scandal of the courts and protests only brought Sarah's exhibition more customers and greater popularity. Following her exhibition in London, she would find audiences at fairs in Limerick, Ireland, and Bury St. Edmunds in Suffolk in the following years. Yet France awaited, and Henry Taylor would be the man to take Sarah there for the most infamous part of her story. Upon taking Sarah to Paris in 1814, Taylor sold her to Jean Riot, a reputed animal trainer who would effectively enslave Sarah in France. Her 15-month-long exhibition at the Palais Royal was under increasingly inhumane conditions. Her stay in Paris was marked by the lack of concern for Sarah's condition and the framing of slavery. By the end of her life in 1815, scientific racism had degraded Sarah's life, as she was exhibited at private saloons and parties for the wealthiest. Yet she remained utterly poor, and is believed at points to have been exhibited with a collar around her neck. Following France's depression after the defeat of Napoleon, Sarah was exhibited at any location available, including Cour de Fontaine brothel, with fewer and fewer people with money to see her. Sarah Baartman's lack of agency and the exploitation she suffered through bigotry and sexualization remain a cautionary tale for many to this day. Harriet Tubman was born in 1822 under the most beleaguered of circumstances, yet went on to become one of the most important figures of American history. Her birth name was Araminta Ross. Her nickname was Minty. Tubman's beginnings were on a plantation in Dorchester County, Maryland, as she was born from enslaved parents Harriet Green and Ben Ross. The grim realities of the Antebellum were experienced by Harriet even in childhood. Enslavers were not held back by their most brutal impulses, even on children. This brutality on the plantation would soon give Harriet a scar for life. In an episode of unbridled rage, an overseer threw a metal weight in the direction of a slave, but they missed, and the weight hit Harriet. From this, Harriet suffered narcoleptic episodes, visceral dreams, and powerful headaches for the rest of her life. Along with a Methodist upbringing, Harriet would take these experiences to be a sign from God and live a devoutly religious life. In an act of inordinate bravery and defiance, Harriet Tubman was able to escape slavery. In 1849, under the fear that she would be sold and separated from her family, never to see them again, Harriet and her two brothers, Ben and Henry, were able to escape on the 17th of September. Notices were put up for missing slaves, and Harriet soon returned with her brothers, likely because this meant Ben left a wife and children behind. However, Harriet would not be stopped. Just a month or two later, she escaped on her own, using the cover of night and the Underground Railroad, a refuge and network of safe houses for the enslaved to escape their antebellum trappings. Escaping north was just the beginning of Harriet's remarkable journey. Her use of the Underground Railroad gave Harriet a vision of possibilities, namely the escape and welfare of the family she had left behind in Maryland. During her escape, Harriet had to use a series of improvisations to keep her cover. During one stop on her journey, Tubman had to sweep the yard of a house to give the appearance she was working for the homeowners. Yet once Harriet had managed to reach Pennsylvania, she knew she would be returning, and her role was to be perhaps the most significant conductor of the Underground Railroad history would record. After making trips along the network to save and free her own family, Harriet's work was not done. Her role as conductor earned her a nickname with biblical connotations: Moses. Her 19 trips to the South led to the freedom of approximately 300 slaves, and not a single trip had one lost passenger. Much like her biblical namesake, Harriet Tubman had led her people to freedom. Come 1861, America would be plunged into civil war. Harriet was given a vision that the Civil War would lead to the end of America's slavery. Not a woman to just stand by and watch the world go by, Tubman would serve in the Union Army as a nurse, a cook, and even a spy. Her most significant contribution was her role in the Combahee River Raid. Thanks to Tubman's previous intelligence gathering as a spy, the raid was an astounding success. As plantations were burned to the ground, steamboats arrived on the river's shores. Their whistles signaled to the slaves they were being freed, and the Confederate soldiers could do nothing about it. Despite their desire to see it stop, some 750 former slaves departed on the steamboats to their freedom. In the years following the Civil War, despite her miraculous and incredible service, Harriet would receive little in the way of pay. Her life would settle if you will. She no longer adventured across America in the name of all the right things, but that didn't stop her from doing good. Setting up a home in Auburn, New York, she became a woman's suffrage advocate, working alongside Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony. Along with this, her aging didn't stop her giving. She would convert her home in Auburn into the Harriet Tubman Home for the Aged, caring for the sick and elderly. Impassable to her last days, Tubman would receive brain surgery in her 70s to relieve her childhood head injuries, refusing anesthetic. Reportedly, she bit on a bullet throughout the procedure to cope, passing away in 1913. Quite understandably, an incredible life has left an indelible legacy. Numerous proposals have demanded her image to be on the $20 bill, and monuments for her can be found across Maryland, Auburn, and Canada. Her life is a story of a time gone by and a lesson for us all. This is History on Fleek, and we'll see you next time.